Hello class, this is our second context lesson, the people of the Pueblos. So you're going to meet the people of the Pueblos, the Hopi, the Zuni, and the people of the Pueblos. The Hopis word for themselves, Hopitashinuma, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but I'm trying. And that means behaving one who is mannered, civilized, peaceable, polite, and who adheres to the Hopi way. Those are the people of the Pueblos. And pictured here, you see a group of modern Hopi from one of the Pueblos. You can see that they are not looking that much different from the way we do. So, cultural characteristics. This culture is matrilineal culture, and what that means is that the women are the centers of the culture, and families are traced back through the mothers. So your last name, instead of having the father's last name, you have the mother's last name, and you belong to the mother's clan. And when you marry into a clan, if you're a guy, then you become part of the wife's clan. The women always held equal rights in tribal matters and law, and they governed the family. The men were the Kachina groups. They were the dancers and those involved in the Kachina rituals. The women had other spiritual kind of roles. In the image over here, you see a Hopi mother, and this is an old image. They're wearing traditional clothes, and she is fixing her daughter's hair. The young unmarried women, the traditional hairstyle is these buns on the side of their head. They're either in the shape of a butterfly or a figure eight or a circle. Yes, this was the inspiration for Princess Leia's hair. And then once the girls are married, their hair comes down and is braided to the sides or wrapped on the sides. But the hair of the women is important, and it's not cut, and it is until they are older. And the way it is styled depends upon what they're doing, what their rank is, and things of that nature. So the cultural characteristics, they are also farmers. They do agriculture. That was their main thing. They also hunted. They did not raise much in the way of livestock, but they relied on agriculture and dry farming practices, as you learned yesterday. They relied on corn, squash, beans, sunflowers, and a few other plants, but corn was their main plant. And here in the image, you can see one of the guys doing dry farming in the desert, which is an extremely hard job. They were peaceful people. They preferred peaceful interaction rather than conflict. And the way they structured their houses, their pueblos, they provided passive protection. The enemies could not physically get to them, so it was hard to have a war with somebody if you can't get to them. And if there was a war and hardship or a drought, then they migrated to other places and they built new pueblos. That's why a lot of the pueblos have cycles where people lived in the pueblo for a few generations, and then either there was a drought or the land became exhausted from farming, and they simply packed up and moved and went to or built another pueblo. And eventually they would end up in several generations later back in the pueblo they had left. They did not have much conflict with neighboring tribes unless there was some sort of food shortage. And during the establishment of reservations, because the federal government, when they were putting up the reservations, did not pay attention to where native lands were, and they originally gave the Navajo, the Hopi reservation, the Hopi lands, all the Hopi lands, and then finally they realized, and that's why the Hopi reservation is surrounded by the Navajo reservation. And over here you have an image of Pueblo. Again, it's another older image. And you have girls in traditional dress, and you can see their hair up on the side of their face heads. And then older women and young children down here with their hair longer. They are community dwellers. They live together in pueblos in a cooperative fashion. And these were cities. They are big cities. The other tribes that were around them, the Navajo, are herders. So they tend to live more isolated in smaller family groups and hogans. And then they herd sheep is what they herd. And they herd them out into the areas and then back. But they don't all congregate because there wouldn't be enough grazing. And then there are the Apache, who were hunter-gatherers. And now, today, the Apache still have huge parts of their lands are hunting reserves. And they raise elk and bison and things like that. And you can go and hunt things there. By raising them, it doesn't mean like they're tame and then they just take them out and let you shoot a tame animal. That's not what happens. They take care of them and make sure that their genetics are good, and they vet them against diseases so that they can repopulate the herds, but there are wild herds as well. So the Hopi were the farmers, the Navajo were the herders, and the Apache were the hunters. The Pueblos that were built included Acoma, which is the longest inhabited dwelling in North America. And that's, you're going to take a trip there today, later. This is a picture of Acoma from the air. And down here at the bottom, you see the desert and the arroyos, which are the areas that flood during rain. And then you have this really steep vertical plateau. It's not easy to get up here, okay? And then at the top of the plateau is built the Pueblos, which are here, which are the traditional dwellings. And then this is a church that was built by the Spanish when they came into New Mexico. So the structure of a pueblo, they're built, as you just saw, in mesas and high plateaus. And they were accessed by ladders. You had to be able to climb up onto the mesa. And that way, if there was an invader or war going on, you could just remove the way to climb up to the mesa. And then once you were up there to your pueblos, and now pueblos have doors, but you actually, before, you always went down. You climbed up a ladder, walked on the roof, climbed down another ladder to get to another level, and then you could move from room to room down below. And to go up, you would climb up your ladder to this room, move over here, climb up to this room, etc. They had small windows for ventilations. Again, you had fresh air coming in, but the windows were not large enough for people to get into if they were attacking. You could shoot arrows out the windows, and they also had blocks that were stones and things that they could use to close up the windows. They were built of adobe, which provided climate-controlled areas and safety. And these were the first, pretty much, apartment buildings. And this is a modern-day pueblo. It's an ancient pueblo, but it has some modern modifications like stairs and doors. This is the Taos Pueblo, and you can see pretty much that aside from the modern doors, how it would be constructed. These pegs here are beams both for the adobes and as for ladder rests. So if you were accessing these rooms by ladder, your ladder would go here and it would be between these two. And that way it would keep it from tipping over when you were climbing it. The kivas are underground private spaces. This is a kiva. And you go down the ladder into the kiva. They can be large, like really big, or they can be really small for just one or two people. They are used for religious ceremonies and religious education. Tribal and political meetings take place there if they are not public meetings. And they symbolize the connection to lower worlds, the three that became before the current one. This is the fourth world of the Hopi, and if you haven't done content yet, you will learn about that. You can't go into active Kiva unless you are part of the tribe. Outsiders are not allowed to enter these, and they are not really fond of you entering the ones that are old either, that aren't being used anymore or that are just remains of Kivas. They're sacred spaces. A horno is a dome-shaped adobe oven. They are a primary way to cook food. These are not for cooking clay. When you make clay pots, they're fired in underground pits. But the hornos are these little dome-shaped things, and you see them out west. You see them in people's yards everywhere. And it's not like just for Pueblos. It's, you can have a house or a mobile home or anything at all. And these are outside because a lot of people still cook in them. Adobe. All of those things are made of adobe, which is bricks made from earth and water and straw and animal dung mixed together and then baked in the sun to harden. They get really, really hard. They're durable. They last forever pretty much, which you wouldn't think of. You would think they would dissolve if it gets wet, but adobe is usually found in places that are really hot and dry. Remember, they only get at the most 8 inches of rain a year, which is a lot different than ours. They're really easy to build with, and they insulate. Adobe has the properties of holding the heat in. So during the day, it absorbs the sun and the heat, and then at nighttime, the temperature is regulated. And then likewise, as it cools off outside, the adobe cools too and holds in the cold during the day so that it's comfortable inside an adobe building without air conditioning, even though you're in the middle of the desert and it might be 100 degrees outside. So for your assignment today, you are taking a virtual tour. You're going to watch the resource video, which is the Acoma Pueblo virtual tour. This is not a Hopi settlement. This is another Pueblo, but they're related. And then you're going to have a quiz and test your knowledge. Remember, you can take quizzes more than once. And this is just a cool old postcard that you can see from the other viewpoint. You can see the sharp cliffs going up to the plateau, and that is the Spanish church on top. Okay, so a real quick this is what you're watching. It is a little longer. It's 30 minutes, but it's pretty good, and he's pretty interesting. All right, so watch it, and let's see how you do on the quiz.